with us now to talk a little bit more. Brenda Carter, she's with the Michigan State Representative, District 29. Always a good friend here on the MegaCast. Great to have you back with us.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you for having me back again. Hi, Tyler.
Hello.
So, when things were unfolding Wednesday in the nation's capital, where were you? And did you get to watch it live as it was unfolding?
I was at home and I, of course, was very interested in the Electoral College certification. So, of course, I was glued to the TV and watching some of the comments of our congressional representatives, and I watched the entire event.
So, with that, your thoughts on what you witnessed?
I love our country. First of all, I love America. And what I saw was something that was hard for me to believe, that this was our nation's capital, the heart of democracy, the beacon of the world. So many countries outside of the United States look to America as the, the model for what their countries aspire to be. And to see this was the only word I could use is heartbreaking.
It was very sad to see it though, wasn't it?
Yes, Ronnie, it was because for so many years I've seen our country overcome things like 911. I'm seeing our country fight diligently to get this pandemic under control, to get our economy back on track. And all I could do is look in almost total disbelief most of the time. Yeah.
So you are an elected leader, and it seems to so many people in the general public that our elected leaders cannot come to a compromise, that our nation is so divided right now that the two sides can't come together to help navigate us through this pandemic and this crisis. What would you say to your constituents that are having a hard time with the two sides not, being able to compromise?
Well, this is just my opinion personally, but if you watch the certification of the electoral votes, what you saw was the two sides coming together. You saw people like Senator Mitch McConnell or Senator Lindsey Graham all of a sudden start putting the Constitution first. Am I saying that we've eradicated the differences between the two um, um, parties? No, we're not there yet. But what I did see was a break. I saw people willing to say the America as we know it, the United States as we know it, is more important than what we saw happen on Wednesday. And actually, I saw a glimmer of hope.
Was it a turning point?
I believe so. I really do. Because now we can see, and from what I'm hearing in the media, that there are a lot of congressional representatives who are looking at this as an attack on our democracy and what we stand for and what we represent in the world. And I believe they're beginning to put partisanship aside and start looking at what's best for our country.
So earlier in the year, there has been a lot of discussion here in the state of Michigan about banning guns there at the state capitol. After what you saw unfold in the nation's capital on Wednesday, do you think that issue is going to come to light again and really get some change because of what happened in DC?
Granny, absolutely. In fact, Representative Sarah Anthony, Minority Leader, Donna Lazinski, and I actually wrote the Capitol Commission and asked for an emergency hearing because of what happened in DC. Many know that this event occurred in Lansing on April 30th, not to the magnitude of what happened in DC, but it did occur April 30th, where we had petitioned the Capitol Commission to put a ban on guns. Right now, you cannot have signs in the Capitol. You cannot hold up a sign of protest in the Capitol, but you're able to bring in guns. This is not a violation of anybody's Second Amendment rights, but it is a matter of safety simply because on any given day, our Capitol is filled with children. These children have no idea of the distress, the unrest that's going on in our country. They just want to look at the Capitol the way I did when I was a child and say, oh my God, this is great. Whether it's the Capitol in Lansing or whether it's the Capitol in DC. These uh, citadels, these institutions are to be revered because these are where decades, if not centuries, of our legislators, they serve. So my concern basically is safety, not only safety of our young people who go in and out of the Capitol daily, but well, when the pandemic was not in raging like it is now. And keep in mind, we do have the pandemic, but there are people who have to go to work in Lansing regardless to the pandemic. And to know that our Capitol and our buildings are safe is number one. That's it, safety. Safety. That's the most important thing.
So, do you worry about your safety as an elected leader here in the state of Michigan?
Of course, I would be remiss if I did not say it because, that we are living in truly volatile times, and the uh, urgency of making sure that we legislators come to work and we're safe. We don't have to worry about anything that would prevent us, from not feeling that way. Yes, I do worry about it. How could I not, Ronnie?
Yeah, Brenda Carter here with us on the MegaCast. She's the Michigan State Representative for District 29. So obviously, the next day there was a bomb threat to the Michigan State Capitol. MSP did arrest someone in that situation. I understand there was another threat against Governor Whitmer. Again today, someone requesting millions of dollars in Bitcoin. So the threats, do you think they're going to continue to happen as the Trump administration is in its final days?
Ronnie, I'm hoping that they do not, because what I'm hearing once again in the media and through several legislators is that there has been some de-escalation of these events. Okay, and that's what I'm looking for. We have to, of course, pay attention to the threats, but we don't have to sensationalize them. It doesn't have to be the news feed, the breaking news every day. We could look at the cases of where there are people out there that are saying enough is enough. Enough is enough. Country first. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we are beginning to reach across the aisle. I'm understanding some of my Republican colleagues are feeling the same sentiments as I am.
Yeah, because there were some Republicans right here in the state of Michigan who do not support the outcome of the election. So your thoughts on that?
Well, once again, everybody has their constitutional right, freedom of speech, and freedom of ideas. Okay, it's a big difference about disagreeing on principles and ideologies and taking it to the next level. Okay, so yes, they have their rights, but so do we. So do people who want peaceful transition of power, peace, collaboration, unity. A lot of us really do feel that we are the greatest country in the world, and we've gained that position, that notoriety by showing how we, as the most diverse nation in the world, can come together and work in concert. So yeah, I am personally optimistic that maybe we will begin to see some de-escalation of this.
And if anything, at least everyone in the general population, I think they're getting an education on the entire political process because, normally it's a 30-minute process to certify the electoral votes. That did not happen this year, but people are now becoming more and more aware of the process and how it works, although be it not for the right reasons.
Yes, and I agree with you, Ronnie, on that because what this is, if anything, is done, in my opinion, once again, is it brought out the love of country. This actually brought out the love of country across the country. I've seen news feeds of people speaking about, yes, I agree with what a person's right to speak, but not to the point where it happened Wednesday. So yeah, I think this is a beginning point. I'm seeing some collaboration across the aisle on the congressional level, U.S. congressional level. I'm actually seeing it on the state level here in Lansing, so I look forward, hopefully 2021, we're going to get rid of this awful pandemic and we're going to work together to heal our nation.
Well, let's hope so, because we need the our elected leaders to come together to work across the aisle in a spirit of compromise and to heal our country as well. With that, let's talk about some of the work that is happening, because while this is taking away from the spotlight of the work that you and some of your other team members and our elected leaders are doing, the work has to continue. What's on your top agenda for 2021?
Economic development. Last term, I spent a lot of time focusing on education and making it more equitable for students all over Michigan. This year, with what's happened with the pandemic and with our small businesses in particular, I feel that a focus on growing our economy and stabilizing our small businesses is in the forefront of what I'm doing right now. So my focus this year is, of course, still going to remain on education, but I'm going to probably push economic development to the forefront.
Economic development, I think, too, is going to be on the forefront because so many small businesses are continuing to struggle. And with the vaccine and the rollout of the vaccine, how do you think that's going to play into the future of the economy here in the state of Michigan?
I think it's going to be critical to it right now because a lot of our small businesses had to close because of COVID-19, and especially with the insurgence between the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, we saw an uptick that actually exceeded what happened in April and May. So I think with the vaccine rollout right now, particularly with the in under the new administration, we hope to see a mass number of people being vaccinated and immunized and herd immunity reached much sooner than they project in the summertime. And with that will come our businesses will be able to open up again, hopefully in time.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that one. So, in the beginning of the pandemic, we also saw the communities, the Black and Brown communities, hit the hardest in the beginning of the pandemic. Are you concerned at all about the rollout of the vaccine and it not being widely available to people of all different backgrounds?
Absolutely. And you brought up a very important point. Just like our school system needing to be equitable, so does this vaccine rollout. And as we know, Black and Brown communities were disproportionately affected because of the high degree of comorbidities in these communities, because of the poor health services that they're being provided. So, yes, and I understand, I actually know in my district, there's been a surge in cases. In fact, if we look at the map out there that's on the Michigan House of Representatives coronavirus, Oakland County is the only one that's blue, which means that we're having a surge in cases. So it's critically important. Not only do we get the vaccines to our community, but we must educate our community because right now there's a lot of people that are still saying, "I'm not taking that vaccine." What happened with the Tuskegee experiment? And this could be just another attempt to eradicate brown and black people. So we need to really address this disproportionality of services and education to our communities.
But you do understand how it's hard for some people because there's been so much uncertainty just around the virus. First at the beginning, it was like, wear a mask, don't wear a mask, do this, don't do this, change this. Oh, it's going to be for 2 weeks, the lockdown. And then it gets into 6 weeks. And then, so when the people that we look to, that our elected leaders are having to change, we understand it's a new coronavirus. And so with it being new, you're getting new information and new data every single day. But because everything is switching and changing, it's one thing to put a mask on and take a mask off, but I can't take a vaccine out. So how do you get beyond that message to increase, really, an individual's trust in our government and our science and in our doctors in order for them to be able to take this vaccine. And do you think at some point in time, though, you're going to have to get the vaccine in order to do a lot of things, like to maybe fly or to attend some of these big sporting events?
And Ronnie, I appreciate you asking that question because yes, I fit in the mold in that group of people that need to be vaccinated. I'll address that one first. Okay, and I also fit in the group that was part of the Tuskegee Institute experiment they did, where placebos were given to black men, and of course, we all know the results of that. There's a huge amount of distrust in our communities, a huge amount. But then there's a huge amount of death. So without being a medical professional, and I'm not, okay, I'll qualify that off the bat. I'm not, I do not have the right to say what this virus can and cannot, will or will not do in the future. And I agree with you, there's a high degree of uncertainty with it. The question then becomes, which is worse? Which is worse? Should we take the virus and run the risk of this may be something that can affect us 5, 10 years down the road, or do we expose ourselves unknowingly to someone who has COVID, and now if we fall into that high risk category, we're on our way to the cemetery? I will state, for just so our community will know, that I believe 14 or 15 legislators in Lansing contracted COVID-19. One of them died, Isaac Robinson. Over 30 staffers contracted COVID-19. And unlike most government agencies, we are not allowed the luxury of doing our meetings at home. We must go to the Capitol. And then the Capitol, of course, is an enclosed area. So if our colleagues come across the aisle, or if someone contracts COVID and they come to your desk, then you've already put yourself in harm's way. You may contract COVID, and even worse than that, it's almost like the school system, which I'm understanding is getting a little better now with young people, not so perilous with young people as it is with older people. But God forbid I contract COVID. Then I come home, I talk to my husband over dinner, he contracts it. We're both over in that group. Well, at least I am. I don't know my husband is. And we both end up, well, seriously. and then we both end up dead because we are trying to do our job. And one of the things that I hope that this podcast is getting across to people is that legislators, we only want to do our job. We were elected to go to Lansing to serve our people. And whether it's the threat of violence or the threat of COVID, this is not a conducive environment for anyone to work in.
So would you support mandated COVID-19 vaccines?
That's a difficult question because I believe people have the right to choose. I do. I do. But then the flip side of that is, what if they choose not to? They contract disease, and they bring it home, and it becomes a super spreader event. Keep in mind, there are still a lot of events going on where people are not masking up. And it's kind of frightening because I do believe that this virus is real.
Well, we know, yeah, we know the virus is real, and I think
You'd be
every
surprised
individual.
how many people still think it's a hoax.
Right. And with that, because I do think 2020, the discussion was all around COVID-19 testing was the huge issue. 2021, with the vaccine upon arrival, and as more and more people, the general population, are going to be offered and have the opportunity to get the vaccine, I think we're going to see the issue of mandated vaccines become the big issue in 2021. Would you agree?
I believe it may come up. Okay, once again, we're friending on taking away our right for free speech, freedom of choice. But if we continue to see what we're seeing, okay, I believe it's happening in Great Britain now to a certain degree where people are being pretty much mandated to take the vaccine. I'm not sure on that. But It depends on that slope of that line. If what we have in place right now is not mitigating the slope of that line, it may come to a point where we may be mandated to take that vaccine in order to control the virus.
With that too, if we could talk a little bit about the role leader, how much information are you provided with when it comes to the rollout of the vaccine? Because there is still a lot of finger pointing going on. We're even seeing it with some of our county executives. Dave Coulter has requested more. We've seen Mark Hackle from Macomb County point his finger at Lansing saying, we've only received 1,000. We need more of this vaccine. And then we've seen the governor point her finger to DC. But at the end of the day, we still don't have the vaccine in the arms of the individual and the people. So as the general population starts to qualify and the lines I think we're going to see start to get longer as people try to get the vaccine, as an elected leader, how much of that decision-making process are you involved in, or are you not at all?
We are kept informed weekly about the rollout and what's happening with the vaccine. Governor Whitmer, Gretchen Whitmer, also does a great job of informing the community as a whole with her podcast she does weekly, pretty much now, to let people know where we are with the vaccine. But I do agree with you, Ronnie, that the a lot of this hopefully will clear up with the next administration. The focus, I'm understanding that President-elect Biden's priorities now is the virus. Okay, it's nothing other than the virus. So I am hoping January 21st we see the focus in Washington change to the point that we're addressing the shortages in our state. And I know that Governor Whitmer personally addressed, where are our vaccines? We were promised X amount of vaccines. We do not have them. And of course, that's a trickle down effect. It goes all the way down to Dave Coulter, goes to County Exec Hackle and Wayne County. So the point of the matter is, I'm hoping that on the 21st of January, everything goes smoothly, that the Biden administration will focus on the pandemic and making sure that the resources are given to the states where they can distribute these vaccines fast and equitably to their communities. This is my hope. It's going to be a little bumpy between now and then.
Oh, there have been so many speed bumps along the way with this pandemic. With that, Brenda Carter with us here. She's the Michigan State Representative for District 29. Before we let you go, we have to talk about DC. I don't know if you caught the 60 Minutes interview last night with Nancy Pelosi. They are requesting that the vice president makes the effort to invoke the 25th Amendment, which of course would allow for the removal of Donald Trump. His 9 days left in his administration. If that does not happen, the Democrats are preparing to try to impeach the president for a second time. As an elected leader, you are a Democrat. Share your insight on this issue.
Well, I'm going to agree with Representative Jim Clyburn on this. Our focus should be on the pandemic. We have elected leaders like Speaker Pelosi. We have Mitch McConnell, who is still in office at this time, who are elected to make these decisions. My personal view and how I view my role as a representative is that I follow the protocols that are administered to us. So in other words, if Congress decides that the best possible approach for the good of our country is to follow the impeachment process, I'm just the representative. I would have to follow the protocol, okay? My personal view on this, I believe in putting our country first. The welfare of our people first. That is where I stand.
Again, a lot of people probably, while may have been aware of the 25th Amendment, way back from that Civic class, in what, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. I think for the first time, they're really starting to look at it and look at the process again. And with that, also free speech.
Yeah.
The president has lost his ability to use social media as his platform. Facebook and Twitter, of course, banning him. And now we are hearing that Parler is going away because Google and the app, Apple, is no longer going to be carrying the app on their streaming devices or to make it, available as well. Is it a violation of free speech?
These companies, Google, Facebook, Twitter, all of these are private companies. They're not public companies, so I don't believe they fall under the purview of violation of free speech. I think they have the right to protect their own entities as well. So I'm not a constitutional lawyer, okay? And I have to qualify that, but from what I understand, that these are private companies and they can choose who will be able to utilize their service.
Yeah, I think we're going to see this conversation also continue in 2021. And I would imagine at some point in time, this issue is going to be coming before lawmakers as well. Quickly, before we let you go, though, do you want to talk a little bit about your education town hall that's coming up this weekend?
Actually, we had it, and thank you for asking that, Ronnie, because one of the beautiful things that I love about District 29, and for those who do not know which communities are in District 29, that's Auburn Hills, Eagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, Orchard Lake Village, and Pontiac. We had Superintendent Kelly Williams from Pontiac School District, Superintendent Jerry Hill from West Bloomfield, which serves Keego Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and Orchard Lake Village. And we had Superintendent Jim Swartz, who services Auburn Hills, that's Avondale School District, as well as the Superintendent of Oakland Schools, that's Wanda Cook Robinson, who services all 28 school districts in Oakland County. And we had representatives from Oakland Community College as well as Oakland University on the town hall we had 2 days ago. It was fabulous. And what we learned from this town hall is that each one of these school districts and colleges had distinct and unique ways of dealing with COVID-19 and how it affects their students. And most importantly, I opened the door for them to say, you have a legislator with a background in education. I previously served 8 years on Pontiac School District Board of Education and 5 years on the Michigan Association of School Boards, where I was the president of both boards at the same time. So I totally understood where each one of these educators were coming from and the needs that they have, such as they needed cleaning supplies to keep the buses clean. I understand our school systems are going to be open to some degree of face-to-face on March 1st, as per Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So I was able to listen to the needs of our superintendents, not only on the town hall, but this morning I was in the superintendent's meeting where all 28 superintendents in Oakland County was there, and they were able to tell us how they felt about some of the challenges they're going through with COVID-19, some of the needs they have, and most importantly, some of the successes. And if I could just take a minute to talk about one huge success, Ronnie, one huge success for one of the school districts in District 29, and that's the Pontiac School District. From Superintendent Kelly Williams, she informed us on our town hall that Pontiac School District now has a fund balance. When I was on the school board, Pontiac School District was $52 million in debt. That's the largest per pupil deficit in the history of the state of Michigan. And to hear that they now have a fund balance, that they're out of debt, that they're doing great, is just wonderful news, especially in the era that we're in right now, which is social unrest, economic decline, and of course, the ever-present pandemic. So the resiliency of our educators, all of them, not only our executives who represents our school districts, but our boards of education, our fabulous teachers who I consider essential workers, the parapros, the TAs, everyone who's involved in all of our school districts all over. This is a day of celebration.
It is a day of celebration for the city of Pontiac. That is great strides. And you know what's sad about the pandemic? Some of these big successes are being overshadowed by everything else that is going on in the country, but they have not stopped the work there at the Pontiac School District. So that is great news. Brenda Carter, thank you so much for your time. We so appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Ronnie. Anytime. Thank you for having me.